Happy Super Bowl Sunday, everyone, and welcome back to the pod. Tonight, of course, is the big night. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and I personally don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. But I will be pulling for the Bengals. I know it's not really the popular choice. A lot of people are predicting the Rams are going to win, and they're the favorites going into it, but there's just something about this year's Cincinnati team, and I think Joseph Burrows himself, he was voted the comeback player of the year or something like that. I think that's something I read. I don't really watch the awards show for NFL, but I did see Aaron Rodgers win the MVP award back to back. So shout out to A-Rod. But yeah, I don't know. I just have a feeling about the Bengals this year. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know everything there is to know about football or even a good amount of it, but I know a little bit, but I could be way off. But here, I'm going with the Bengals, and it's just fun to kind of root for the underdog, especially with the location of the Super Bowl this year and all that good stuff. But in this year, too, I think, not to go on a tangent here, but I'm never really one that looks forward to the halftime show. I normally use that as a time to replenish whatever drink I have or socialize, whatever, but this year the lineup is pretty dope. We have Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar performing, and I think that's probably the most excited and stacked lineup that I personally have seen in a few years. I don't even know the last time I've actually looked forward to a halftime show. Again, I'm probably in the minority with that one as well, but I think tonight's just showed the whole show itself. I think there's an excitement going into it, and I think with these two teams here that I don't think anyone would have necessarily predicted them to going into it, so that makes it even more cool. But my official pick is Cincinnati taking the W this year, and I'm gonna go score-wise 31-28. Part of me feels like we may get in like an overtime situation, but if not, I think it's going to be very, very close. And my prediction, again, could be way off, is 31-28 Bengals. So we'll see. And I think it was Cincinnati who gave, I think, like the whole city, like their schools, like the day off tomorrow or something crazy like that. There was something to that effect that I read. If that's the case, then shout out to them. And I wish I would have had a football team that made the playoffs in a cool town like that when I was growing up. But tonight should be fun nonetheless, and regardless of what you're doing and who you're pulling for, just be safe out there, guys, and make sure to have a safe way home. We have Uber, Lyft, and all that good shit now. No need to be drinking and driving and all that bullshit. So just be safe out there, guys, and have a good time. But we're going to get into the show here today. Of course, we're going to be covering everything WWE and AEW related and any news outside the ring, which thankfully there hasn't been anything too crazy popping off this week. So we'll actually be able to get in a little bit more to the show here in a few. But I did want to give a quick shout out to some new listeners that we have and that we've gotten, especially over the past couple of weeks. It's really cool to see how the show continues to grow and just the territory that it covers and literally around the world. So, and it's just I'm like a nerd when it comes to like numbers and statistics and stuff like that. So it was very cool and a pleasant surprise to see that we got new listeners. Like I said, within the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks or so, from the likes of Canada, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, the Dominican Republic, and then of course along with everyone else who's been listening, the U.S., the UK, and all the places that have kind of been with the show since day one, and I'm truly thankful for you guys. And it's very cool again to see the different regions and the different cultures and the different backgrounds, and just how wrestling really kind of unites everyone. Like we are literally covering almost every basis of the world, every region at this point already, and it's cool to see how something like wrestling can bring us all together. One of my friends, he has a sign that he goes around carrying, and it says connecting people with wrestling, and it's very cool, and the concept is very unifying. Obviously that's the point, but it's refreshing to see, and to see that the podcast can kind of just touch so many different aspects of life. It's very cool. So I just wanted to say hey first, and thank you guys for listening to the show and for checking it out, and for everyone, of course, for sticking around. But feel free to give me a follow on Twitter at ASHMANNS is my personal account. And then the show, of course, is at KickashPodcast _. And let me know where you guys are at. And if, of course, have any questions, comments, feedback, anything like that. But again, I appreciate you guys. I just wanted to kind of just shout you guys out and kind of point that out. And it's very cool because I've only been doing this a few months here now, and to see how fast the show is kind of growing already, it's very cool, and it's just fun, so thank you guys. But getting into the actual show here itself, like I said, thankfully there wasn't a lot of outside of the ring news going on this week, or maybe I just missed it. I haven't really been on Twitter too much this week. I've kind of been popping in and out, just had a lot of going on and the schedule and everything like that. So, and sadly, though, the thing that did stick out, and we'll kind of start with WWE here first and then get into AEW more specifically in a little bit, but sadly, like I said, with Mustafa Ali, he, of course, as we all know, requested his official release from WWE a few weeks ago now, maybe a month or so ago, and had stated that he pretty much can't fulfill his vision and things that he truly wants to do while being employed by WWE. His request officially has not been granted, it appears. Mustafa Ali tweeted out yesterday, "I'll see y'all in like 2.5 years." So that's got to be an obvious sign that WWE has no plans on granting his release request anytime soon. Which is, it's got to be an emotional spot to be in, where you're still getting paid, however, you're not allowed to work and you aren't allowed to do what you love to do, and you're not allowed to do what you're being paid to do, right? It's got to be such a weird and conflicting position to be in, and reminds me sadly of everything that Luke Harper, Brody Lee, John Uber went through. If what was that, 2018, 19 time frame, and it's kind of even more sad to think back and look back on. And I'm obviously definitely not trying to compare the two, but just in the respect that they both were requesting their release and even took to Twitter to do so and are not being granted their release. And it's got to be frustrating too, and kind of even more shitty feeling. And I mean, for me personally, in a way, it would kind of piss me off in a sense, because you have WWE granting dozens and dozens of talent cuts for budget reasons, right? Quote unquote budget cuts. So you have them releasing all these people, and yet when you ask for your release, they deny you for whatever reason. And there's been word that, they denied his request because they see value in him as a talent, right? And they want to use him in the future or something. And if that's the case, then it's like, yeah, no shit. Of course you see talent. Like, how can you not see talent in someone like Mustafa Ali? Like, literally everything this guy has been handed, he has knocked it out of the park for them. Even Retribution, right? Like, as shitty as Retribution was, he at least gave it some level of intrigue, and it's just one of the whole hacker gimmick, right? How he was still trying to tie all that in together. You gave this man like a lot of shitty stuff, and not saying that, for the record, I kind of was enjoying the hacker gimmick, right? And I thought there was a lot of legs and length that you could really stretch that story out, and you could really go a lot of different ways with it, right? If you really put some time and effort into it. And to see how quickly that was just dropped and then maybe transitioned into Retribution, and how that was just not really cared about at all, and just the clusterfuck it ended up being, is sad, and no reflection on any of the talent for that matter, but especially Ali, because he at least made it somewhat intriguing, and of course the other talent did as well, but he being the leader, quote unquote leader, it's just, I don't know, it's gotta be frustrating. And some people are saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be bitching and complaining. You're getting paid to sit at home and do nothing, and getting paid pretty handsomely, people assuming. And, if he is, then, and I hope he is, if he is, then good for him. And he should be getting paid more. And he, like I've stated here before, and I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent, he's one of those people that you just get a good vibe from and a good feeling from, and you just, without even really knowing him, because obviously none of us know him personally, but just the stuff that you've read and heard, and the things that you've heard from other people about him, you get the sense that he's a good guy. And especially with, for instance, whenever he would be performing on a one of the Saudi Arabia shows, he would donate any of his earnings from the shows to whatever charity, and of course he would make other various donations as well. But it was just one of those things where you feel good rooting for someone like him, you know what I mean? So to see WWE not really give in and release him, and to be fair, they have no reason to. They literally have a contract holding him to what apparently is around 2.5 years. Now, I don't know if he has like 2 years and then the half is like the 90 days built into that or what have you. But roughly about 2.5 years, maybe a little bit longer. So they have every right to say, no, fuck you. We have you for X amount of time, I'm sure they didn't quite say it like that, but, it's probably how it felt in some respects. But, I don't mean to laugh and downplay the situation, but it's just kind of laughable in the respect coming from WWE, where literally, like I said, they just released, over 80 talent in 2021, and you have someone asking for their release that you're not using, right? It's not like he's being actively used on TV every week, and then all of a sudden he's requesting his release, or anything like that. Like, dude hasn't even been seen in I don't even know how long. So I don't know. Of course, I'm sure we'll get more information as the time goes on, especially if it is, another 2.5 years. And it's just a weird situation, and it's got to be shitty for him, but I hope he just keeps his head up, and it seems like he is. He seems to still be active. He posts videos from time to time here of him in the ring doing random drills and stuff like that, and, it sucks, but if that is the case, which obviously it seems to be, just think of the ideas and the shit that he's going to come up with in this time frame, If he knows, like, okay, I have 2 years, I have 2.5 years, while I'm either not being used or I know this is my true expiration date with him, then I know starting X date of this year that I can start doing A, B, and C. So it's, in a way, it's got to be a shitty situation and a shitty feeling, but also there is light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm just hopeful for that and very excited to see what happens in the future for him. But like I said, guys, I am a big numbers and statistics person, so I was kind of curious recently over the amount of ticket sales that WWE has sold for night 1 and night 2 for WrestleMania. So I kind of peeped that out before I sat down to actually record the pod here. And as of a week ago, and shout out to WrestleTix on Twitter, and that's at WrestleTix, Tix is Tix. Full credit to them. As of a week ago, like I said, they have reported numbers for both night 1 and night 2. Night 1 apparently has sold a total of 47,182 tickets, with 6,137 remaining. And night 2, respectively, has sold 47,970 tickets, with 5,404 remaining for night 2. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I know that's kind of defeats the purpose here, right? But to me, like, I wouldn't be upset. Some people are saying, oh, WWE's got to be shitting themselves and freaking out about ticket sales. And I don't think that's horrible, I think we're obviously still in the pandemic, and even though, regardless of how you feel about it, a lot of people still either can't travel or won't travel, or especially a lot of your out of the country people coming in, right? And your people from like the UK and all around the world, like a lot of those places now. Like I said, of course, travel restrictions have eased up, but a lot of people still can't, and like all the variants and shit. And again, I'm not getting into all that because we all hear about that shit every day. But I still do think that plays effect, And I personally know a lot of people who, regardless of how they feel, I know people on both sides who have been fully vaccinated, boosted up, all that good shit, like to the T. And still won't go anywhere, still feel uncomfortable going to a grocery store. And then I know people who are not vaccinated who don't care and will do anything. And, and for that matter, for the same effect too, like they'll go to, and they either don't care or they will go to work. And it's just, there's so many different opinions and feelings on it. And again, that's not what this is about. But my point with that is it's still a real thing, and it will be for quite some time, it looks like, unfortunately. But I do think that's going to affect your special shows like this and your big stadium shows. And again, I, of course, am not one to give them excuses, but to be frank, I kind of expected the numbers to be lower for both nights, and maybe especially night one. I think with how we saw the divvy of the nights from last year, that night two is normally your big matches, you know. So I think I kind of expected night one to be a little lower, and it is. I mean, it's roughly what 750, 800 lower ticket sale wise, but on it, that's not a lot at all. And that amount, that handful, you know, essentially can be sold in one day. And again, this is as of a week ago, so I'm sure they've sold more since then. But and of course they will going forward also. But that's just kind of like a almost midway point through WrestleMania season and kind of the build to WrestleMania itself. I know me personally, I'm not going this year, but I know a lot of people, and I was going to be one of them if I was going to end up pulling the trigger and going, that I was going to kind of wait more towards, I guess, last minute and more closer to the date to kind of get a feel for what was going to be on either night, and things like that, and to see how it was going to play out, and to see how the card basically it fills up, you know. They have a lot to do and a lot left to still sell people on, and I think that's kind of what a lot of people are waiting on too. I think maybe back in the day, and again, me being one of them, for instance, for WrestleMania 35, like, I didn't even see the card when I bought my ticket. You know, we had a feeling of a few matches, but I bought it just because it was WrestleMania. But I think this year and maybe going forward, you're going to have your hardcore fans who will go regardless, but I think a lot of people are kind of taking a more wait and see approach and maybe waiting closer to the date. But that's just a quick update with the WrestleMania ticket sales, and just like a quick maybe glimpse and an idea of what you already have announced for the card. I guess what I'm trying to say is, too, maybe it's kind of interesting to me to see what's currently announced, right? Like, we know, for instance, we're going to get Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, and we're going to get Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. So it's interesting to see what we already have and what's already been sold, and how the build to WrestleMania and the more we add to the card, I say we like I work for them, right? But how WWE adds more to the card, how more ticket sales more tickets will be sold. And I'm just very interested to see. I'm gonna keep these figures to the side here and to see the amount of tickets that are actually sold between now and WrestleMania Day itself. So just a quick update. Again, I timestamp all these shows, so if you're not really a numbers person or don't really care about the ticket sales itself, you can definitely skip over this part, and I will not be offended at all. But just for the people out there who are kind of like me and just a little interested in that, there's a quick update for us. One last thing here before we get into AEW itself. Like I briefly mentioned, I am going to do a separate show, full prediction show for the WWE Elimination Chamber, probably sometime after Raw. So maybe Tuesday, Wednesday time frame of this week coming up. Since this SmackDown has pretty much already been recorded, we already have an idea of what that show is going to contain. So essentially after Raw, we're already booked and just full focused on the Elimination Chamber not pay-per-view, but PLE itself. So I think I'm probably going to record, like I said, maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday time frame. And I'll, of course, drop that and let you guys know on Twitter as well. But I'm not going to get too much into WWE because it's pretty much all focusing on that. And like I said, I just want to get a clearer focus after this coming Raw airs to see the full lineup for the card and then kind of give a proper prediction from there. Like I said, we do have an idea of what happened from SmackDown's recordings for next week. And I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but that is out there if you are interested to kind of get a heads up on what happened for this show coming up. But like I said, I will record that show separately and drop that, but that's kind of why we're skipping past WWE World and going straight into AEW here. Like I said, shifting here to AEW, of course, this was the big week with the big debut, and Dynamite itself is a pretty big show and a lot of news coming out of it. I'm sorry if you guys hear any horns or anything like that in the background, but they should be passing here soon. But of course, like I said, the big week and the big surprise is finally here. We ended up getting two surprises. Tony Khan had gone to Twitter. I'm not sure if I addressed it in last week's show or if it had happened yet or what, but Tony Khan had essentially stated that he realized that I don't want to obviously he didn't say this, but he fucked up the words and butchered, I think is the word he used, or something to that effect. He messed up the whole phrasing and the meaning of the Forbidden Door term. So he ended up getting an actual Forbidden Door entrant at the 11th hour, I guess you could say, and getting that signing done on Sunday, which I'll obviously get into here in a second. So we ended up getting two surprises here on Dynamite. Of course, the surprise debut of what ended up being the free agent against Isaiah Cassidy in the qualifier match for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. So of course we'll kind of get into that. And if you're listening to this here now, you of course know who that was, and that ended up being Keith Lee. Looked great, in my opinion. Again, I'm gonna kind of save that here for a second. But getting into AEW Dynamite here itself, the show started off with MJF's celebration and the Pinnacle coming out. The Pinnacle brought out cardboard cutouts of MJF. The whole segment itself, I'll kind of give a brief overview really quick. My feeling at least was so well done, and it was exactly how MJF should have reacted to him winning and beating CM Punk in Chicago. Before he even got to the ring, before I even get to him getting to the ring, they had, instead of a red carpet, a visual of his scarf, which, thinking back on it now, I don't know if it was an actual like carpet made into the design of his scarf. It was just a image for like the LED boards. I kind of want to go back and look at that now, but whatever, it ended up being that the image of his scarf is what brought him down the aisle, which was just so MJF. And by the time he made it to the actual ring, there were two females kind of waiting for him on the apron. One gave him a kiss on the cheek, and then one he just went to town on. And there are reports that is his actual girlfriend, so if so, that makes a lot of sense. If not, then hey, get it. It is what it is, and, do your thing. But it's just, you don't see shit like that on TV a lot lately, at least wrestling TV, so it just kind of took you back there for a second. But hey, kudos to both of them, rock on, live your life. I'm happy for you guys. But the whole segment itself was MJF just, like I said, gloating about his victory, as he should, him thanking the Pinnacle, and the entire time while he's kind of gloating and giving himself props and making you feel like he just, conquered the world, there's Wardlow just kind of chilling in the back and smirking in the back and just kind of giving him that glare, which I love. His facials are just, like I've stated here on previous shows, are just so spot on and so well done. And it's the little things like that he does that I think are just on another level. So it's just fun to see his little reactions to MJF while everyone else is just so like enamored with Max, and then you got Wardlow in the back just kind of like thinking like this little shit, you know what I mean? So it's fun to watch Wardlow, but MJF himself is, I don't have to sit here and tell you guys that this is nothing new, but it's so captivating. I personally love seeing him win shit like this because you get to see him gloat, and I think that's him at his best when he's cocky and just talking so much shit because he just defeated whomever. That's prime MJF to me. But that brought out Punk, and I like that Punk came out with no music, no nothing. He just came out, looked over to Tony Schiavone at the commentator's desk, essentially called him over and had an impromptu interview. He pretty much congratulated Wardlow for winning the match and beating Punk last week, which I think was pretty clever, and a pretty genius route to go, with kind of giving credit to the match itself, but acknowledging, I don't want to say the obvious, because the fans at home didn't know until they gave us that other camera angle shot, which was, again, so well done. But Punk pretty much, stated the obvious, like, yes, he lost, but it wasn't obviously clean, and he wants a rematch from the tag match that they had a few weeks back, which then, of course, brought out Sting and Darby Allin. And it's just, every time I see Sting and Darby Allin now, I just think of Andrade, and I don't know how long that's going to stick with me or if I'll ever get over it, but it just kind of tickles me. And I just, at this point, like, I don't even need to see Andrade, like, in the ring, which, of course, I would love to, but just seeing Andrade interact with Sting, of course, and Darby Allin, and just the kid. The whole thing is just gold. And again, that's a complete sidetrack, but I don't know why, but my brain, every time I see Sting and Darby Allin now, I just think of Andrade. But that led to Dax Harwood grabbing the mic and pretty much saying that he wanted a rematch from Greensboro. Punk pretty much accepted and said, and MJF had said rather that he could have it, but he had to find a partner not named Sting or Darby Allin, which kind of left Punk in an interesting situation. And of course, with the AEW roster pretty stacked, for whatever reason, I was thinking, I don't know, like I didn't really know who to pinpoint, but I wasn't thinking who he ended up choosing. That was just a complete 180 from. I was thinking someone like a Lee Moriarty or some like a younger guy that Punk was gonna go for. Don't really know why. That's just what my brain went to, and not like another megastar. Which of course, like I said, we'll get into here in a second, but. A good opening segment here, pretty much everything you expected and wanted from an NJF celebration, especially beating some of the likes of CM Punk in Chicago. So a very good opening segment, and it pretty much set up everything that it needed to leading on in the rest of the night. Gonna skip forward here a little bit to the Inner Circle segment, the team meeting that Chris Jericho deemed mandatory this week, mandatory attendance. I'm not gonna get too much into this because this obviously was a full promo segment here. But I think pretty much the MVP from this segment was Santana, and he was essentially calling out Jericho for being selfish and saying that he had cost them chances over the past however long it's been and prevented them from becoming AEW champions, and or AEW tag team champions rather, and that they had been focusing on protecting Chris and the Inner Circle and not focusing on themselves. Jericho did at one point though have I don't say clever, but he kind of called them out at one point and said, hey, I forget the day, I believe he said it was February 17th of 2021, where they had a shot at the tag team titles against the Young Bucks, and they lost the match. So, while yes, I think maybe if Santana and Ortiz were separate from Inner Circle and had been this entire time, maybe they would have been champions by now, or maybe would have had a little bit more focus as a tag team act, but it was kind of cool to see Jericho pretty much call out the obvious, like a lot of times that would have been overlooked or just not mentioned, and the fact that he called it out, and it wasn't even a big thing, but it was just kind of something small that really stood out to me, and it's nothing to even be ashamed of. Like, yeah, they had one opportunity, but how long have they been together, right? Since day one, and we're going on, October of this year would be 3 years, so 2.5 years, essentially, something like that, so yeah, they did have one opportunity, but think of how many more opportunities they could have had. So I like that Jericho acknowledged that, but I like that it was kind of acknowledged and kind of kept it moving type of thing. But Santana here, like I said, was the MVP of the whole segment itself. They did get to an interesting line where Jericho said that maybe I've chosen the wrong two members of LAX, which of course was I didn't expect them to go there, and Jericho had asked Hager for Homicide and Hernandez's phone number, so that was a nice little call out, and of course that got everyone heated, but that led to Sammy kind of standing out here, and I really loved how Sammy looked after this segment was over, but he pretty much got in between both sides. It was like, essentially said, look guys, settle your shit, and until you guys do, I'm out, and took his vest off and left it in the ring. He said that he had quit the Inner Circle before, and he's not afraid to do it again. And good for him, the past, I'm going to say maybe month plus, of course we all knew the Inner Circle was a thing, but it's kind of been in the back of your minds, right? And not obviously been a focal point. And Sammy Guevara, I think, has really solidified himself as a singles act and just kind of his own man and doing his own thing. And he really doesn't need the Inner Circle, I think. And I think that's a kudos to the Inner Circle and to Chris Jericho and to the elevation that he's gotten from the group and that he's put in himself and all the hard work and everything. So I think that was, to me at least, that was I don't say a shining moment, but maybe in a way a standout moment for Sammy, just kind of being his own man, doing his own thing, being like, look, like I don't need you guys, I love you guys. And I'll always love you guys, but settle your shit and let me know when you're done, He's not picking sides, so good for him, and I like how he kind of handled that and then went on and did his own thing. But and of course that set up the tag match for next week, and it's going to be Santana and Ortiz versus Hager and Jericho, and I think it's got to be a given that Santana or Ortiz win that match. If not, I don't care if Jericho or Hager cheat or anything like that. If they win and it's not Santana and Ortiz, I'm going to be very kind of disappointed. I'm not even going to lie. So I'm kind of going into it with the expectation of Santana and Ortiz getting the W here. And then in my mind, hopefully using this as, I hate to say it, quote, momentum going into Revolution, because I'd love to see a Jurassic Express versus Santana and Ortiz tag team match at Revolution. And then maybe getting ahead of myself, but maybe it's too early for predictions, but I would love to see that being their crowning moment, and that being literally their crowning moment for the tag team titles. Again, I'll kind of hold off on saying if that's my 100% prediction, but I'm a big fan of those guys, and I want to see them really get a push and some spotlight and some shine. But I was a big fan of this segment, and I'm very hopeful for them going forward. After that, and prior to the qualifying match, we had a backstage segment where we saw the Adam Cole and the Young Bucks attacking Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero, but they were interrupted by what was the actual entrant of the Forbidden Door, Switchblade Jay White of course, New Japan Pro Wrestling. It was so dope to see him. I love the debut. I love the way they set it up. I love what they ended up doing on Rampage, and I love the setup going forward. I am a little surprised the way they are kind of giving away his match, but I will save that for a little bit. But, of course, we got Jay White here, and it's so dope to see. And, of course, that kind of makes you even more hopeful that Kenny Omega is on his way back. I don't want to say soon, because I don't want that to sound like he needs to rush his recovery. Of course, if Kenny Omega is 100% right now, but he still wants to take 6 months to a year off to heal, I would say take that plus, do whatever you have to do. But of course we miss them, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you miss them and you want them to come back, but you want them to do, of course, what's best for them. So not rushing him back at all, but man, I hope I don't know if it's a signing of Jay White. Obviously, it's not, because he's still, I'm assuming, contracted with New Japan, but whatever arrangement they have, you got to imagine it holds over and bleeds into a Kenny Omega interaction and setup. So that's kind of, I don't say long, down the long stretch, but, again, we haven't really heard an update about Kenny Omega at all. Unless I've missed something from the AEW side. So, again, just to kind of see the brief debut and the way that just the jacket and the visual and everything. Like, if you didn't see it, go out of your way to catch a clip of it and check it out. Just so cool and so well done. But, again, something small but something impactful. And, of course, that led into our qualifying match, which was the promoted debut and the promoted surprise that we were all anticipating and looking forward to. This is the qualifying match for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. It was pinning Isaiah Cassidy. Just, Isaiah, shout out to him. Like, that guy, he's just, he's not tiny, but just compared to what we, of course, know, who was making his debut and his signing official with All Elite Wrestling being Keith Lee, the limitless Keith Lee. Dude look amazing, but seeing him standing side by side to Isaiah Cassidy, it was just, the size difference is just so funny, and it made for that much even more intriguing and exciting match because of the things that Keith Lee can do with Isaiah Cassidy, right? And the throw, my God, like, dude got as high up just from Keith Lee throwing him in the air as Montez Ford does, I think, when he does his leapfrogs. Like, probably not to the same height, but damn near, like, up there. It's just insane. Like, just the athleticism from Cassidy and the strength and, of course, athleticism from Lee as well. It's just made this match a fun match, and, again, probably the perfect debut opponent for Keith Lee. A lot of people are commenting on Keith Lee's weight and his physique and all that shit, and again, that's not my place. As long as dude is healthy and dude is taking care of himself, and first of all, I don't know. Like, you look at who's to say like anyone is. I mean, I guess you can make assumptions, right? But like, you look at a Kevin Owens or you look at a Keith Lee, and they obviously have been doing this for years and have had pretty much the same build for the entire time. So why all of a sudden are people making a big deal of Keith Lee's weight? It's just kind of bizarre to me. But again, I'm not going to sit here and comment and harp on that. To me, as long as dude is healthy and dude can wrestle and dude is living his best life, that's literally all I care about. He also went through a pretty severe battle with COVID last year, and he was public in saying that he almost lost his life to it. So I'm sure that played into, recovery and rehab and cardio and conditioning and all that stuff. So, I don't know, like, to me, I focus on the positives and I try to. And of course, if it ever got to a point where there was reports coming out and stuff like that, like from credible sources, then yeah, that'd be a completely different thing. But dude looked like the same Keith Lee that we've seen for years and the Keith Lee from NXT that we all love. So that's what I care about. Of course, Keith Lee got the victory here. I think it was maybe like a 5-minute match or so. There was a point in the match where Matt Hardy pretty much got fed up with how the match was going and jumped the guardrail and made his way to the back. And they were pretty much playing off of the tie-in to where Jeff Hardy got, I don't know if he got fed up in his last WWE match, but the same thing that Jeff did, jump in the barricade and then go into the back. And I don't know the exact line that commentary had referenced with it, but it was just so well done. Just little things like that, like I said, that they are able to get away with are just so clever and like little Easter eggs. And again, it just kind of frees up, obviously, Matt Hardy and just puts another seed. Oh, I'm not going to say frees up Matt Hardy quite yet, but it adds another layer and another seed to the dissension between the AHFO and how I'm pretty certain once we get closer to Revolution and the debut of Jeff, which I believe his 90 days is up like the 9th or the 10th of March, which is just outside of the AEW pay-per-view weekend, which is so sad. Like, I wish he would have gotten fired or left or whatever happened like a week prior for my own selfish reasons, so he could have made his debut at Revolution, if that's what's going to end up being, him, obviously, which I think it's pretty obvious at this point, but the assumption of him coming to AEW rather, it would have been so dope and just so amazing for me personally. So just a selfish note, but yeah, that was the segment in and of itself. And again, like if you're a Keith Lee fan, you're super excited. If you're new to Keith Lee, just you have no idea what's coming. And this man is just the way he moves in the ring and the things that he's able to do are just amazing. So very excited to see what a freak Keith Lee can do in AEW, and I think the sky's the limit for him. Next up, we had the FTR versus CM Punk and his mystery partner match, the tag team match, and of course we got FTR coming out first. Then we ended up getting a surprise, which was a very big surprise in my opinion, of Jon Moxley being CM Punk's surprise partner. Not a play on words there, but I myself was not expecting it to be Moxley. I felt like that pairing of Punk and Mox for the first time and is a big deal, and I think they probably could have gotten more of a story out of it, but it was a cool little moment there for the AC, the Atlantic City crowd. So very cool there, and they ended up getting a dope show, but the match itself was very good, and I'd love to see these two teams go at it again in the future. I think FTR is just amazing and just underrated in a way tag team, but I don't think it's any surprise here that Punk and Mox ended up getting the victory here, and hopefully that sets up a tag team match with Punk and whomever versus MJF and what I guess would be Wardlow at Revolution. So we'll see how that continues to play out here too. But moving on after that, we had the TBS Championship match, which was AQA versus Jade Cargill. It was a good showing, and I like that they actually gave AQA a nice little video package prior to the match to kind of give you a backstory of her. She previously was Zeta Ramir in NXT and back in 2021 and was one of the wrestlers who were released. To be honest with you, I wasn't very familiar with her, but she would definitely impressed in the ring, and her, I guess, calling card is the shooting star press that she hits, and it's very beautifully done. So shout out to her and her skills there. And I don't think I mentioned, if I did, I just completely forgot what I just said, but Booker T is actually the one who ended up training her. So shout out to Booker T and the talent that he's producing out there. He, of course, had a hand in training Sammy Guevara as well. So he seems to be pumping out some real good and solid talent. So that's a nice sign and a nice coup for AEW there, because she did end up being signed to a contract. Tony Khan, I believe, released later Wednesday night, or maybe sometime on Thursday. But shout out to her. But of course, no surprise here. Cargill ended up getting the victory here, and it was nice to see Cargill on Dynamite rather. and to see her get a nice victory here. There have been reports coming out that WWE is very much interested in Jade, and I would say of fucking course they are. Look at her, she's amazing. She's everything that they would want and more, but they had a chance at signing her, and she made her choice in going with AEW, and I think the sky's the limit with her. So very, very much looking forward to seeing her reign play out as well. But right after that, which I was kind of surprised by the placement of the card, was the Professor's 5-minute rookie challenge. And of course, the Professor is Serena Deeb. She took on a local talent, which I believe it was a local talent, being Katie Arquette. I think there were tweets out there confirming that she is, I believe, the niece of David Arquette. If I'm misspeaking there, I do apologize, but I believe that is the report that's coming out there. No surprise here. Again, Serena Deeb ended up crushing Arquette here in very, very short fashion. But this is going to be a cool little thing that plays out going forward, I think. And it's fun to see Serena Deeb really have something substantial to kind of keep herself on TV and keep herself occupied each week. But that, of course, led to the main event, which was such a fucking brutal match. It ended up being the Texas Death Match for the AEW World Championship. The AEW World Champion, of course, is Hangman Adam Page going up against the Murder Hawk Lance Archer. And this was such a good match. It actually blew expectations that I had going into it. Definitely make it a point, if you didn't catch Dynamite yet, or if it's tucked away in your DVR at this point, go watch this. I think the whole show is worth it, but this match itself was very, very well done. Fucking Hangman Page, man, he's a champion, for lack of better words. He's a true warrior, man. Like, this dude just has gone through bloodbaths, the brutal matches with Bryan Danielson, and brutal in a different form of from I don't know why I keep wanting to say Dynamite was last night, but from this past week's Dynamite. But I love the psychology that they did too, with having the top rope pretty much just dismantled to try to eliminate the Hangman's finishing maneuver, and the way they ended up setting it up at the end, it was so smart and just so fun and just clever, and that's the things that you really look for and you love to see from AEW, because they truly think out of the box. Again, I don't know, no rundown or recap of this match I think could do it justice. Again, not saying it was some 5-star classic or anything like that. Maybe to some people it was, and I personally think this was maybe Archer's best match in AEW. Again, I don't think any of us really expect him to get the W here, sadly, because it's still Hangman's time, but this was a good showing for both men, and I'm very curious to see what this feud that's kind of starting and blossoming between Adam Cole and Adam Page going forward, which I hope ends up culminating at Revolution. I can't wait to see the story in the beginning of that build, so I love the way that this match was done, and the way it ended, and the way it's kind of setting up the next real feud going forward. But that was AEW Dynamite in and of itself, so now we're going to move forward here to Rampage. Rampage itself opened up with the tag team match of Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero, Roppongi Vice versus the Young Bucks, which again was I would say probably like a B+, A- match. And I only say that because I would have loved to have gotten even more time. I think if this match was on like a pay-per-view, it could have easily stolen the show, just time-wise and lack of restraint-wise and stuff like that. But these two teams, and it's one of those things where you know how good the Young Bucks are, but not that you forget, but especially when you don't see them on TV featured in like a match either weekly or bi-weekly, or at least kind of more frequently than they have been lately, then you kind of forget how good they are. And just seeing it play out literally in front of you is just, again, just a fun sight to see, and it always leads to a good match. And this was everything that I just said and then some. And I love the story that pretty much all the guys already have built into each other, and then the way that it ended and the way that it kind of set up Jay White coming out to essentially just take care of Cassidy after it was all over. But again, this is just another layer and this essentially in my eyes was kind of like a way to kind of showcase Jay White and give him an opportunity to come out there. And it sets up the match going forward next week. But again, I am so looking forward to seeing how all the dynamics here kind of intertwine and play out together, because now we have so many different routes that this and kind of branches that this can stem off of, right? You have the Jay White factor now, you have the Adam Cole factor, and we can't forget that Adam Cole brought in Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, who don't really quite get it along that well with the Young Bucks, but and it seemed that, again, at the same token, that the Young Bucks, again, didn't know that Adam Cole was bringing in Jay White. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you have Kenny Omega, who's lingering in the shadows and going to make his return who knows when. So there's just so many different things that in just webs and different stories that are kind of tying together in a weird way, or that will. And that are just intertwined right now. And I really can't wait to see the interaction between Kenny Omega and Adam Cole, because yes, they were around each other, but they truly didn't interact when Cole first made his debut. And of course, Kenny was a champion at that point, so he had a different focus. So I'm so looking forward to the story that is on the horizon. And I think just the spring and the summer that we're going to have in 2022 is going to be so badass with AEW and everything that they're bringing in and all the free agents that we still have. Because you got to think, we still have like your Jeff Hardy out there, and then Karrion Kross is out there, and you have so many different guys and girls, for that matter, talent out there. But even just talking about who we have right now, and the sprinkling in of your Jay Whites and who else, with that Forbidden Door, which everyone continues to talk about. It's just exciting. So I like the way that they kind of set that up this week on Rampage. And again, it kind of set forward Jay White's debut match for AEW, which I was kind of surprised that they're doing on free TV and not on like a pay-per-view, which, not even being funny with that, you would kind of think that they would maybe hold off on that and present Jay White a little bit bigger. But then, I don't know, like I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. And I don't know, maybe I just kind of amp it up more than I should, but Jay White's a big deal, so I'm just kind of surprised at the way they're doing it. But again, I kind of get it as well, because they're, you need your ratings, right? And they're more of, I guess, a TV company than obviously I don't know if I keep saying pay-per-view, but a PLE company. I've got to get better at that. But again, another solid, good opening match. But that led on to our next match being Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, versus Robin Renegade. And if you guys are familiar to the Renegade sisters, Robin and I just had her sister's name. They're twins in my head, and I just forgot it. Robin and I hope it comes back to me. But I was fortunate enough to see both of them at a dark taping, and they have a good future ahead of them. And if they haven't been signed by Tony Khan, I think he definitely should take advantage of signing them. For multiple reasons, but I think it's kind of like a cool dynamic that they're a twin sister tag team rather, and I think you can kind of not comparing them to the Bella Twins, but you can kind of, there's just a personality about them, and I think that they can really shine and be stars of the division going forward. And again, not saying that could even be a thing a year or two from now. I'm saying long term, 5 years, like a 5-year plan with them. Build them, because I assume they're still kind of green, they're still rather new, but they show so much in the way they interact with the audience, and just the heat that they demand from the audience, like in the reaction. I know me personally, from being there, like I wanted to boo them, right? And I at that point hadn't really heard of them at all, so they definitely impress in the ring, and I think you should check them out. But this match was very good. I think it was a good match and a good showing for both of them as well. Of course, again, no surprise that Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, got the victory here, as she should, because that's just further setting up her feud with Thunder Rosa. And I think what is the highlight of every Rampage, if I'm not speaking out of turn here, is Hook, right? Sin Hook. And the inclusion of Hook on Rampage. If he's not your opening act, he should be your main event. I understand why he wasn't this week, of course, with their tag team titles in the main event slot. But Hook, man. Hook is back in action against QT Marshall's apparently top student from the Nightmare Factory, being Blake Lee. They build Lee as being more of a mat-based wrestler, and that kind of being his in-ring style, which is fun, because that's obviously what Hook is I don't want to say known for, but getting to be known for, and kind of his style as well. So it was a good kind of play in there also. But Hook, man, like, what can you say about Hook? Like, that hasn't been said already. This dude is just an assassin, and just fun. And I think he definitely deserves a match on Revolution. I think it would be very fun to see him versus QT. I could see that being the opening match, to be honest with you. I don't think it should be a kickoff match or a kickoff show match, rather, or anything like that. Or maybe if you don't want to open with him, if you want to open with a more high energy match on the pay-per-view, have it be the second match. But I think that you could definitely place that on the card and have it be a major selling point, maybe a major selling point is overstating it a bit, but a big deal on it. And I think that's a good showcasing for him, rather. So I definitely am in the field of a QT Marshall and Hook match for Revolution. So officially count my vote if that's a thing out there. And if not, then we got to get it to be a thing, because I think there's just something about Hook, and you just need to strike while the iron is hot. And I think that's what they're kind of doing and what they're building to. If you notice, he's kind of going, obviously, through, like, I don't want to say your jobber talent, but your newer talent, your local talent. Because jobber just sounds so, like, demeaning. That's not the case, So just your local talent and your newer talent, newer than Hook. So of course, shout out to Hook, but I think there's obviously big things coming from him, and he's got to be on the Revolution card. I think it's got to be obvious at this point that it should be QT. The main event, of course, like I said, was Jurassic Express defending their tag team titles versus the Gun Club, Colton and Austin Gunn, and the Ass Boys, which is the stupidest thing that I think I've heard. And I can't even believe I actually said it on here, but, that's like the running joke now, and the ass pounding and all that shit. So it's just a weird thing, and a weird, I don't know, thing that's gaining traction online. So, it is what it is. This was another solid match, but to be honest, I really didn't. I'm kind of surprised that the Gun Club got a title match. I know they're, I guess, number one in the rankings, so I appreciate them sticking to the rankings, because I'm always bitching about the ranking system. So I guess that makes sense, but there shouldn't be any doubt that Jungle Express were going to retain the titles here. And like I said, I think going forward, your match at Revolution, your tag match rather, at the Revolution pay-per-view should be Jurassic Express versus Santana and Ortiz, and I think that should be the crowning moment for Santana and Ortiz. I think that you're kind of building something here and gaining more fan support for them, and kind of showing them stand up to Jericho and the Inner Circle, and kind of branching off and doing their own thing while still remaining baby faces. So I think you should strike with them, and I think that would be a good opportunity as well for Jungle Boy to maybe kind of break out and do his own thing single star wise, and of course that frees up Luchasaurus, so I think kind of gets overlooked and deserves more shine as well. So I think that'll kind of be, and again, not to necessarily break up Jurassic Express, but just have them maybe focus a little bit more on the singles route. And you always have that tag team there when you kind of need them, kind of like a New Day resort type thing, right? Like they're always a solid group, but they go out and do their own thing, but they're always accompanying each other and got each other's back and shit like that. So just a route that you could go, but that wrapped up Rampage in what I thought was a pretty good show. Nothing really crazy or newsworthy besides the whole Jay White influx of it and all that good stuff. But another good week of AEW and another solid week and another week in the books. But I always appreciate you guys making it through here and listening to this show. I hope you guys have a good Super Bowl night and an even better week coming up. Take care, guys.